welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sonia, a self-taught designer, hand letterer, and illustrator. In today's video, I want to show you how you can draw this cute character in Procreate from doing the outline, so the inking process, all the way to coloring. If this is something that interests you, keep on watching. Okay, so before we get started on the inking and the coloring process, I just want to walk you through a quick overview of what we're gonna be doing. So all we really need to be focusing on to create this simple looking character design is really to focus on the four things. So the first thing is we're gonna do this inking process where all the outline is, just like this pizza here. And then the second layer will be the color. So we're going to determine the color, and I'll show you the really quick way to go about doing that. And then once we have the inking, the outline, and the color, all we need to focus on is the shadow and the highlight. And again, for this drawing, this is given that the light source is coming from this way. So the shadow will lie on the opposite side of the light source, and then where it's directly hitting, that would be where the white highlight area is. So that's all you need to know. Once you know this, you can pretty much apply the same idea into any kind of illustration or character design. Okay, so here's the sketch I have, and now we're ready to do the inking. So the first thing what you want to do is, so we have a sketch layer, and I'm going to go ahead and create a, let's go here, create an extra layer, and we're going to call that an outline or inking, whatever you want to do. And then here I already chose some colors already, so I'm gonna go with the darkest kind of brown color, and we're gonna just go ahead and go around the outline. Now for me, when I do my inking, the best brush that works is under inking, and then we're gonna use a studio pen. So that works best for me. The only thing I do is I make one adjustment, and that's the streamline. So what I do is I'm gonna select the studio pen, and I'm gonna swipe to the left, duplicate it, so we have a the duplicate of the pen, and you can see this little icon here shows that it's a duplicate. So you go in, and all I really change here is increase the streamline. So what streamline does is when you draw a line, it helps you to avoid that little jiggly kind of movement. So when you, even though you have some kind of hand movement drawing, it's gonna help you to draw more of the straight line. That's all it does for streamline, and I'll show you. So all I do is adjust the streamline, and I'm gonna go ahead and use that brush to do the inking. So again, we're doing it on an outline layer on top of the sketch. So you just wanna play around with the thickness of the brush and see which fits best. But the idea is if you were to draw a line, it's supposed to help you draw more of a straight line with the streamline. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and ink the whole thing. Okay, so that's step one. I'm done with that. I'm just gonna go ahead and turn up the sketch. So now I have this outline layer. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and color this. So here's the easiest way to color. So first you want to create a extra layer, and we're gonna call that color. And this is gonna go below the outline layer. So what we're gonna do is we are going to just color drop it. But the easiest way to go about doing that is first you select the outline layer, you click on it, and we're gonna make it into a reference. So there's an option for reference right here. So what it does is when I do my color drop, it's going to reference based off on this outline. So I could still create these colors in a separate layer. So let me show you what I mean. So let's say I want to color my pizza yellow. So I would go ahead and select yellow. And again, on my color layer, I'm going to color drop. I'm going to color drop my yellow. So it's only going to be inside the outline. But let me show you what happens if I don't use it as a reference. So this is not a reference anymore. And I'm again on my color layer, I grab my yellow and it will no longer be within the outline because we're not using the outline as a reference. So that's why using the reference, it's such a time saver. So I'm gonna go ahead and again, go back, use it as a reference and then start color dropping. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm done. So we are done with the color part. One thing that's missing is where the tongue is. And I wanted that to be between the color and the outline. So I'm gonna create a separate layer just for the tongue and then just draw it in. Again, we're still using the same brush. So I'm still using the Studio pen. Something like this. Okay, so we have that. Okay, so that's step 2. Okay, so now the next step is to create the shadow and the highlight. So given that, let's say the light source is coming from this side, this pizza guy will probably have a shadow on the left side of it, and then the highlight will be on the right side of it. So I'm gonna do the shadow first. So I already picked out the color for the shadow, but typically you would wanna go a little bit darker than the main color. So that's what I did. So to do that, we're gonna go ahead and create a separate layer. We're gonna call this a shadow layer. The only thing about shadow is we're gonna go ahead and have to change the blending mode. So right now it's N, which is normal. You click on that, and then we're gonna choose multiply. So when you do choose it as a multiply, it kind of acts like a transparent paper where you could kind of still see through all the layers and the colors below that particular layer. Another thing is when you do use a shadow, it can be a little harsh, so you want to lower the opacity a little bit. So I'm going to go maybe about 50% here. Okay. I am still using the same brush, so I'm going to put some shadow for, let's say, oh, another thing that I want to mention is, remember the outline, we had it as a reference. Make sure you uncheck that reference so that when you do color, and if you want to color drop it, it will work on just on the shadow area. So let's go ahead and do that. So here I already chose the color for yellow. So shadow will go here somewhere like this. And then I'll do the shadow for the rest. Okay, that looks good, and we're ready for highlight. So highlight, again, we're determining that the light source is coming from this side, so I'm gonna probably go ahead and add the white area there. So I'm just gonna add another layer. We're gonna call that a highlight. In this case, we don't have to change the blending mode, but I do like to lower the opacity a little bit so the white is not too harsh. So I'm gonna lower maybe about 70%. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and add the white. Okay, so that's it. The only last thing I want to do, so this is the bare minimum. Again, we talked about you have the outline, you have the colors, and then the shadow and the highlight. You could add a little bit more detail. So for example, you could add more shadows in the pepperoni part. So let me just show you how I would do that. Again, I will select something that's a little bit darker than the regular color. You can go ahead, still work on the shadow layer, but you could add extra touch for the pepperoni. You can go ahead and do that. But again, this is optional, but it does, if you add more shadow, more highlight, it does make it a little bit more better. And I would also like to add some, if you remember from the sketch, I do have some little dots that I think it adds that little detail. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So that I'll just create a separate layer for that. It's just optional. I'm just gonna go with a little bit darker color that I selected, and then just go ahead, or maybe this one, and changing the mode to blending mode, lower the opacity a little bit for this one, just for the dots. Just gives that extra fun touch. Okay, something like that. So that is it. Really simple, right? So again, just focusing on the outline, color, shadows, and highlight. And you could create any kind of cute character just like this one. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. I do create more mini tutorials just like this. So if this is something that you're interested in, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.